Hi everyone and welcome to Fresh from my garden. In today's video I'm sharing an update of our garden and different fruits that we are growing in our garden. Our garden is a small garden but we have a lot of fruit trees and plants that are growing in our garden. This is the biggest fruit tree from our garden, and it's a jackfruit tree that has been grown from seed and it has started fruiting last year after almost 7 years. When we live in cities and suburbs and have only limited spaces for gardening, it's always better to get grafted fruit trees rather than growing these from seed. So we have several grafted fruit trees in our garden, including this sapodilla or sapota, and it is growing in a 50-liter drum, and it has been fruiting for the last 3 to 4 years. Grafted fruit trees can be grown in containers and also in the ground, but if we don't have enough space to plant them in the ground, they can be grown in large drums or big containers that are at least 20 to 24 inches wide and deep. Grafted fruit trees usually start producing fruits within 2 to 3 years after planting, depending on the variety of plant that we purchase. When growing fruits or vegetables in the garden, it's also very important to have a lot of flowering plants that will help attract a lot of beneficial pollinators and help the plants in the garden grow well. This is a sweet lime tree that we purchased a little more than a year ago, and when we purchased this plant, it was already in its flowering stage, and within a few months, we started to see signs of fruit development on this plant. This plant is potted in a 20 to 24-inch container and it is growing pretty well and it is blooming for the second time. Last month we harvested two sweet limes from this tree and I had shared a video on that, and the fruits were really delicious. This is a variety of guava known as strawberry guava, which is smaller in size to the regular guava. And we planted this in a 24-inch container almost 3 to 4 years back. Last year, we saw some flowers on this plant, but there was no fruit development. But this season, we are starting to see more number of flowers that are growing on this plant, and also some of those flowers are turning into fruits. So we can see tiny fruit development on this tree, and we are really excited to harvest this fruit for the first time in our garden. Whenever purchasing fruit trees for your garden, especially if you're growing them in smaller spaces, as I mentioned earlier, make sure to look for grafted varieties and also check with the person at the nursery to see what kind of container and soil it requires so that it can grow and flourish well. Many fruit trees also require a lot of direct sunlight, a minimum of 5 to 6 hours of direct sunlight in a day, without which it will not grow well or produce any fruits. The fruit trees that I shared until now are placed in the west side of our garden where it receives direct sunlight in the afternoon as well as in the evenings. And we also have on our front garden a variety of jackfruit known as the red moon variety, and it is also a grafted tree, along with this bay leaf tree, which is growing pretty well in a container in our front garden. The red moon jackfruit is a grafted variety growing in a container in our front garden, and it hasn't fruited yet, but it is said to be a smaller and sweeter variety of jackfruit which has a reddish orange pulp. Right next to it, we have the baraba fruit tree that we purchased just a few months back, and we have one baraba tree that is growing well in our parents' garden and producing a lot of fruits. Also, in our front garden, growing in a container, we have a mulberry tree, and this was previously growing in the northeast side of our garden where there was absolutely no growth because it was not receiving any sunlight. But after we shifted it to the south side of our garden where it receives some filtered sunlight during the day, it has started to produce mulberries that we have harvested previously, and this has grown really well with a lot of new foliage and also fruits. So, as I mentioned earlier, sunlight is a very important factor for growing fruit trees. But there are some varieties of fruits that will still continue to grow and produce fruits in partial to filtered sunlight. But we must check that with our nursery before we purchase and plant them in our garden. This is a citrus fruit tree that is growing in the ground and it was planted from seed, and it is a variety of bitter orange with which we make pickles. Citrus trees require a lot of direct sunlight and will only produce fruits and grow well if they receive at least 5 to 6 hours of direct sunlight in a day. Since this is not a grafted tree and was grown from seed, it took almost 7 years for it to start producing fruit, and it is growing right next to our pomegranate tree, which is a grafted tree and is also grown in the ground. In addition to the citrus trees, we have three pomegranate trees that are growing in the south side of our garden, and all the three are grafted pomegranate trees which started producing fruits within 3 years of planting. Every year after the tree produces fruits and the fruiting season is over, these trees need to be pruned back so that they can grow well again in the next season and produce a lot more fruit in the following season. Pruning back is another important thing to take care when growing fruit trees in small spaces so that they don't overgrow the space and they also produce more and more fruits in the following seasons. Pruning back will also ensure that there is no pest infestation from that fruiting year that is carried forward to the following year. Papaya is a tree that we can grow from seed, and we can get a lot of harvest from these trees, and they start fruiting within 2 to 3 years after they are grown from seed. Banana is another tropical fruit that we can grow easily in small spaces, and the fruits are usually ready for harvest within 9 to 12 months after planting. Passion fruits grow on vines that we can support using a fence or a trellis, and they produce fruits within a year of planting them from seed. And we also have grapevines that take a few years to start producing fruit, but grapevines require a lot of direct sunlight as opposed to passion fruit vines that can grow in partial to filtered sunlight. Both these plants require a trellis or a fence to support their growth. Regular fertilizing is another important thing when growing fruit trees so that they can get all the nutrients that they need to grow well and produce a lot of fruits. I have previously shared a video on fertilizing schedule for fruit trees and also the organic fertilizer that we make at home. Mulching reduces evaporation of water and also prevents weeds from growing around the base of the plant. So, these are some fruits that we can easily grow in our garden. In addition to whatever I have shared in today's video, we also have some mango trees and dragon fruit plants that are growing in containers and also in the ground. So, as you can see from today's video, we can grow a lot of varieties of fruits even in small spaces by buying crafted varieties that can be grown in containers. We have a small space that is a total of 2000 square feet, including our house and garden. I hope this video inspires you to grow a lot of fruits and vegetables in your garden. Please do stay tuned for more gardening videos. Thanks for watching Fresh from My Garden.